Hi, welcome back to Exploring the Edges.
Yeah, welcome back. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you guys with us. This week we have a couple of things to talk about. It should be a short episode, so we'll just jump right in. The thing that we know is that, and we've spoken about it before, we always drop in to see what can we speak about that serves the greatest good. And sometimes as we're watching what's happening in the world around us and we're trying to make sense of it and see what our part is, the thing that Jen and I know is that so long as we drop in and there's a way for us to share our love with you, we will record an episode.
Yes.
And when that stops being true, maybe we will not record an episode. But for now, there's some space for us to speak love out into the world. And so that is what we will do. Yeah.
This is not, just regular love. We're talking about unconditional love. Love outside of yourself, love outside of your immediate family, your friend group. It's not happening to me. It doesn't affect me. That no longer applies, It's just this unconditional big love that you can draw. You can just draw from the source itself as unlimited. Yeah, so we want to speak about that today.
Yeah.
Just flip the love script that seems to be floating around.
Yeah, and also that there is something outside of us that is this big love, because we are, this is what we are source. We are this big love. And I think that it is in the interest of the powers that are struggling to remain in control to let us feel separate from it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is really the basis for this conditional love, right? Like, if I'm this, then I will be loved. If I'm not this, then I will be loved.
Yeah.
And I think I had this on my list for number 4, but we can start with it as number 1.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the messages that came in for us is that, the type of love that we hold, and we can just sit in this space together for a moment. Like, what is love? And who do you love? And I think that as we expand our consciousness, that answer might start like, I love my spouse and my pets and my kids and my mom and dad, my family. And then it gets harder, I think, as maybe I have a friend that I really love, my 4th grade teacher, I loved her. Maybe it gets harder as you start to push it out into the edges.
Of your immediate circle.
And one of the things that I know for sure, one of the things that I've experienced in my own process on this path is really pushing it out past traditional lines of kinship, like my neighbors, my family, my friends, the people that I know, and really feeling into, like, do I love people that I don't know? Do I love people in other countries? Do I love people who elected Donald? Like, do I love them fiercely, unconditionally, with compassion? I do. And, like, feeling into that space, like, further still, can I bring unconditional love even to people who are harming others? Like, where do the conditions of my love stop? And it's an interesting place to feel into, because as we start to connect with that deeper source that Jen was speaking into, it doesn't have conditions.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, because as we call in this unconditional love, and this is always what we call on in all of our ceremonies and all of our prayer work, you know, we call on unconditional love, and so naturally what we're shown is where we ourselves are not holding that unconditional love, and where we ourselves might feel like we're unworthy of receiving that unconditional love. And so it's really this, you know, because I have a lot of compassion. I have a lot of compassion for the black sheep of the family, you know, the truth tellers, the cycle breakers, the ones who refuse to be quiet, who refuse to sit down, who refuse to shut up. You know, as women, and some men also, who in their immediate family circles started to see what was going on. It takes a lot of courage. I mean, even for me to say things like, you know, this feels like gossip, and I don't want to be a part of this. You know,
that's
like,
a hard one. This is how people bond.
It's super hard. Or, you know, like, all of the ways that we come out, not just about our sexual preferences or our dietary preferences, or, you know, even saying, like, you know, this kind of language, like, you know, it's not acceptable, or and just, like, you know, it's hard to do it. And so I think something that came in for us is that when you've been separated from having this unconditional love, I know for sure I was, when I was growing up, there was a lot of conditions around love for me and my family. When you're separated from this unconditional love early in childhood, you know, once you've done the work to heal those wounds, you know, this is really what led us into a higher expanded consciousness, a higher state. This is what pulled us through on the path, because, you know, because some of us incarnated now, some of us as souls are here to hold this really high, devoted, unconditional love. And so the life that we've walked, if we look back on the life that we've walked so far until now, sometimes it was the absence of that unconditional love in our early upbringing that called us out into the world to find it in other places. And the same courage that it takes at, like, you know, a family holiday to be like, listen, I'm not going to tolerate this, and if that's not okay, like, I'll leave. You know, that same courage, it takes that same courage to speak out that love in the world, especially where it's not received, or it's received in shadow, or there's so much to be said here.
I just kept thinking that, like, maybe in your upbringing, the people who were helping you grow up thought that they were providing unconditional love, because deep down they're like, oh, I would still love you no matter what, but it still, maybe it felt like there were conditions, you know, like, if I don't do this, then I don't get the attention. Or maybe it happened at school, or maybe it happened outside of you, maybe it's something that you learned out in the world also, you know. I just think that there's many ways to kind of sit in it.
And thanks for speaking into that.
Because I do sometimes think that, like, we'll just say, like, your parents, it could be your grandparents or whoever was raising you, maybe they felt like they were holding an unconditional love, like, no matter what, I'm gonna love you. But if it's always feeling like it's coming through in conditionally, like, if you don't do this, then you have the silent treatment. Well, that didn't mean I didn't love you, but you're still, like, you're just little and maybe taking that on, you know? I'm just sort of feeling into that a little bit. How they might not realize that there are conditions. Like, I will remove it for a while, you know?
I
see how that feels. I don't know. It's like,
for myself personally, I feel like I watched, like, whatever bit of love was left fall away as I became more embodied in my truth. You know, and it's hard to, it's hard to, you know, it's hard to recognize that, you know, like, if you hold protective boundaries around yourself with your close family, and they're not willing to respect those boundaries, and, like, and so then how can you say that you do love me if you can't?
I think that can kind of spread out into other people's experience, you know, like, you say you love me, but, you know, I've asked you to call me this, or I've asked you to clean up your language, or I've told you that I don't think these jokes are funny and you keep telling these jokes. And I think, yeah, actions speak louder than words sometimes, you know, like if people can't make small adjustments.
Yeah, like when I served them, when I did what I was supposed to, when I didn't talk about the things that I talk about,
Sure.
when I didn't make a big fuss over the things that are important to me, when I was small and quiet and burdened by the weight of all of their expectations about how I would behave, then there was like peace, but it wasn't love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But I do think it's, you know, it just is an awareness that, and I think it's hard to, because I think for me personally, this path of service that I've walked on, it is always aligning and orienting towards unconditional love.
Yeah.
You know, like when I sit with somebody who's in the depths of their grief, when someone tells me something that's, you know, I hold safe space. So sometimes things come out.
Yeah.
There, you know, when it's like a horrific thing, like I hold love anyway, you know,
Yeah.
and it's unpackaging these places in ourselves where we have room to hold more love.
Sure.
Yeah, but something that just came in for us, like, you know, like in the whole of humanity, like, can you love it all?
Yeah.
You know, because I can love those that even did not love me when they should have. And
Sure.
I can hold the ones that hurt me, and I can hold the ones that are hurting, you know, I can hold it all. And I think that as we move through these deeper and deeper processes, like last week, you know, like you and I were in this deep process.
Yeah.
And as we move into these, Jen and I held a ceremony.
Yeah.
And we said, show us the shadows in our union. This is what we said.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what we said. This is super fun.
And so
we were shown.
Yeah, the lightning.
You get what you asked for.
Yeah, the lightning strikes. And, you know, I'm carrying this deep wound of, like, I will always be alone, you know?
Yeah, and mine is that I deserve to be.
Deep stuff.
So, yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah. And as it comes in, and you can feel it coming in, I think for many of us who have been on the path for a long time, we sort of understand kinetically through the laws of attraction that when you're in an emotional state, your energetic frequency is love and trust and hope and joy. This is what we're attracting in. This is what we're being met with. But when your emotional frequency is in despair, loneliness, grief, rage, this is what we're attracting in.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we should always keep ourselves in these higher frequencies, because there's so much gold in the shadow process.
And honestly, like, I'm not even sure that that's sustainable. And if you are doing the work to be in the high frequency, bypassing. Without spiritual bypassing and just like ignoring everything that's happening, like to be able to, I mean, even in like a simple example is like yesterday I was in deep grief over, we took a trip and it was about like 3 hours each way, and we saw so many animals that were hit on the side of the road. And Jack just had to hold me, like I was like beside myself, and we had been back for a day and it just all hit, you know. And
just because you opened the door.
Yeah, sure. But if I had just bypassed all of that to kind of stay in like a happy, like everything is good, I'm a high vibration, all of this stuff, then I would not have been able to release all of that to create space for what's to come next.
Yeah.
And to be able to feel that, you know, when you can feel that, then you can feel higher. And I think it's even related to this unconditional love we're speaking of. Does it, you know, one of the first things you listed, you know, your partner, your pets, does it extend to every animal?
Yeah.
You know, and this is what I was feeling, you know, like this grief for all of these animals that were just hit because the world is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have a chance, they were just in the wrong place, or somebody didn't swerve or couldn't swerve because they'd hit another car. And, Yeah, it was just a lot, you know, just to feel into that. Like, I could have kind of tried to shake it off and been like, but I just felt it all, and I didn't have a choice not to. So obviously it's creating space for something that's coming. But
but I do think that it's because we like open the door a little bit, you know, like you were feeling sad about something else, and so we like open the doorway of sadness, and as we open that doorway, then all of that stuff comes up. You know, like I was in our deep process last week, like, you know, when we can really be with our anger, it opens the doorway of anger. And then all, you know, I was working in rage, you know, my maternal line. And I guess the thing about it is that this is always an opportunity when we're in these vulnerable states energetically. There's always the opportunity for the distortion to start speaking. And we experienced it last week, and even you could have experienced it last night, you know, if you started hearing like, I'm too sensitive, you know, I shouldn't be feeling this deeply about these animals, it's just part of life, like get a hold of yourself, you know. And if I had said that to you, or if this is your own internal dialogue, like even today before we started recording, you know, this feeling of like, should we even be doing this? Like, is anybody listening? Does anybody care about this, what we're saying? You know, and then asking like, okay, is this a divine alignment? Are we being aligned out of the podcast sharing space? No. Yeah. What is this then? Distortion. You hear it loud, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like these voices are because maybe we're going to say something important, and, you know, there's something that's like, don't say it, because we like, you know, like we like things the way they are. You know, because there's all kinds of energies at play all the time. I mean, I just saw a post saying that like 95% of the things in this world we cannot see. Yeah. Because you can only see in this much frequency, and you can only hear from like 70 hertz to 700 or whatever. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, the things that you can observe are just like very minimal. And it just feels like there's always sort of like these energies, and if it's distortion, like it's benefiting from you staying in this state. It's benefiting from us like not recording today, because maybe we're going to say something that's going to reach the right person, and it's going to be this whole snowball effect, you know.
But it does require diligence.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
As you're hearing this internal narrative play out, like, and it doesn't matter whether it's, oh, you're too sensitive, your heart should not be bleeding for these animals, or if it's don't bother saying it, nobody's listening anyway, or if it's, you'll always be alone, why are you even trying to build this relationship, or
you deserve to be alone. See,
this is what you get. This it's always present, you know. And I think it's just, and it really is, this is when we become sacred warriors for love. You know, when we can hear that, we can hear it, we hear the voice inside, we hear what is being put on us from our family or our friends, we hear the narrative, and rising up in that embodied unconditional love that claims sovereignty. I am unconditional love. Yeah. You know, and everything that I put intentionally out from my heart space in love, like, it's unshakable.
Yeah, and right now as you're speaking into this, I didn't think of this earlier. Like in the last episode, I was talking about how in Lionsgate, I sat down and had a heart-to-heart with my heart, right? And I was like, I'm so sorry I stopped listening to you, and you got quieter and quieter because of that. You know, I had this big heart-to-heart. And I was like, I promise I will start listening to you. And then like the voice in my heart started getting louder again, you know, little by little. And I just wonder if, because you kind of, like, it's sneaky, you kind of don't realize distortion if you're not paying attention, right? Yeah, you just think sneaky. It's just like this internal dialogue, the same way as your heart has this internal dialogue, like, go say hi to this person, or oh, sign up for this, or this trip you need to be on, or this class you need to take, or post this, because we don't know why, but post it, you know? Yeah. And so as you're speaking into this, I'm wondering if the practice is the same. If you recognize the distortion, you go, this is just distortion, and you can work through the stuff. But if it will just eventually, like, become quieter and quieter. I don't know the answer. This is just what's coming up for me right now. We were not planning on talking about it, but
yeah, but it's
interesting.
It is interesting, and I feel like distortion is the only way into the places that need love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because this is all that's happening. It's just showing us so succinctly, so beautifully, so simply.
Yeah,
you know, this is a place that needs love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we view it that way, like as not something that needs to be like exercised or cleared or you know, bypassed, if we view the distortion as it's really such a beautiful doorway into where you're not meeting yourself in love.
Yeah. Or maybe once you have fully met yourself. I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, because we can even view it from the lens of our own experience last week.
Sure.
You know, because so I'm sitting in this, you know, rage is present. I had seen it in my field for a couple of days, and I know not everybody experiences energy the way that I do, but I even started to see like physical manifestations of this dissonant energy, like lurking in doorways, and so I knew it was sort of in the field, and I'm feeling into it, and then, you know, I tried to work through it myself, and I felt like, oh, okay, this voice, like, you'll always be alone, like, it's not my voice. Okay, whose voice is it? Oh, it's my mother's, you know? Like, okay, let's feel into that. And whether it is the voice of my mother or not, it's just a doorway in, you know? Like, this doesn't matter, like,
it's just to go one step deeper,
go deeper. And so, and then I'm in this, I can feel this, I'm doing a womb clearing, and I'm feeling that energy lift out of all of the eggs that are still in my ovaries, you know? And it's it's multi-dimensional healing, you know? Like, we don't even have the capability to understand as humans when we're in these states of higher dimensional awareness and consciousness and healing, you know, really what's happening. But I could, and maybe it's triggered from that thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago where Miley Cyrus was talking about, like, inheriting this, you know, like, maybe now it's just part of my field, and maybe it was supposed to be part of my field, or maybe I'm remembering pieces of that, but energetically I can feel this, you know. I had this narrative that some mothers have children so that they'll be loved, so that they won't be alone, and I could feel that energy, you know. And I've spoken a lot in other places about how we really are just the combined creation energies of our parents at the time that we were conceived, and so everything that they were holding energetically is what we inherited from them. And so if my mom was in this state of like, oh yeah, I want to have a baby so that I will never be alone and I'll be loved, you know, this is a huge thing to clear from the body. So that's what I was doing. And then, you know, I knew that I couldn't get into the deeper parts, and I started a fight with you so that you couldn't help me. You know, I was controlling and just acting out of complete dissonant energy.
It's the same distortion, though I'm alone.
I'll always
so
be
here's
alone.
the proof. You know.
And then, you know, this is the beauty of a conscious relationship, especially the depth that we meet each other, like being able to recognize it. You know, we both have the awareness in terms of like when this shit is coming up, that we're both like taking time to be with ourselves, like, okay, like what's coming up, and we're like doing breath work and journaling, and we're, you know, embodied and figuring out like, okay, what is this? And we see each other, here's what I think might be happening, like, oh, you're right, we can talk about it. And then like when we open that space back up together, there was so much there, you know, there's so much there. And like really, you know, surrendering to this process of emotional healing and energetic healing and clearing. But the doorway in was the distortion, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I think it's I think it's really a gift, you know?
Yeah. I don't think that it's like something to run from. It just was interesting to think about it in that same way. Just kind of came in. Like, I just wonder, maybe as you meet yourself higher in this unconditional love, maybe it does lessen this distortion because you don't need the doorways in as often. I'm not sure. It's just a wild life. Life is wild, everybody. Like,
but I sort of feel like as we meet ourselves in these higher,
it's gonna get crazier.
It just gets deeper and more rooted.
Of course.
And even I think,
of course, like the stuff that
I don't think it gets
the final
lesser.
no, because the final boss, maybe less often, I don't know, but the final boss is like not easier than the first boss, you know. So I feel like you do the work, and I don't know that it's going to get less intense. You're just going to be more equipped and have more experience potentially, you know.
Yeah, because I do think once you've worked through your own stuff, the doorways are now opening into your maternal line, to your unhealed ancestry, into the collective, into the energies in the ley lines and the earth.
Yeah. It's bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't think it lessens over time.
Yeah. You just get, it's easier to recognize, you know?
Yeah, you get some good shamanic drummers around you and just see what can come up, see what can open up.
Yeah. Oh, man. But I do think it will probably, I don't know, maybe it just gets more clever. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that it necessarily wants to be recognized. You know?
Yeah, it is because you're holding so much light.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that Jen will sometimes say to me after we've been working together is, you know, like when because we do work together often, and I might say like, I can't quite see it. And one of the things that you always say is like, I've poured in light so that you could see it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that this is the same with distortion, and it also ties into this process of expansion and contraction, right? Like, we've talked about before, as you expand, you're met with contraction, everything that can't support where you're going, where you're expanding into.
Yeah.
And also with distortion, where it doesn't necessarily want to be seen, but it's being exposed in these states where we're met in love and we're holding unconditional love, the light, you know, and I also think that as we step into these roles, these sacred service roles, you know, we're surrounded by so much light, just in terms of universal love and higher dimensional beings, versions of ourselves on other timelines, our highest self. We're attracting our soul family, our soul tribes. There's so much love there. And it's going to be exposed.
Yeah.
This is the way.
I just think that people who are not doing the work are still feeling it. You know, this internal dialogue, like I deserve to be alone, I will always be alone. People are feeling this, but they're not going, this is distortion.
Yeah.
They just think it's true. They think it's the truth, you know, because there's value in the distortion to keep you at that frequency. I don't know. It's deep, and it wasn't the whole purpose of this episode, but it's just like feels juicy, you know, like because I know that we're not the only people who thought those things specifically or something like it.
Sure.
You know, but not everybody goes like, what is it? Yeah.
Well, if what you don't want to do is call in a storm, you know, and then stand on the beach and demand to be shown the shadows in your union.
Yeah, we did do it.
If you're not prepared
we pulled the storm card, and then we're like, okay, we're going tonight, and then it was pouring rain. Like, it was wild. I don't know. You can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes life doesn't feel real. It's insane. Yeah. It's insane how many things come together.
Yeah, it's all...
we did do it.
It's all happening
right now.
So we got a good look at the shadows in our union. Yeah. And face them together, and that feels really good. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for taking us on that path. I think it's so important. Tangent. Well, not a total tangent, but because I think that, you know, we all have access all of the time to these deeper layers of awareness. You know, we all have access anytime to go stand on the shore and say, show me my shadow, you know, or show me my gifts, or whatever it is that you're working on. Like, we can ask at any time, like, show me the next step, show me why I'm feeling so anxious, Show me why I can't sleep at night. Show me why I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Show me why I'm attracting this kind of partner. Show me why. You know, we all have access to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another hidden key element is what's available to us from the perspective of all of the lives that our soul has lived. And this isn't like some people can do it and some people can't. Some people can see it and some people can't. Everyone can see it. Everyone has access all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's whether or not we put our intentional effort and energy into those spaces. You know, if we're doing past life regressions, if we're working with individuals who have practiced this and can open it for other people. You know, like a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with in our subconscious is not from this life.
No.
You know, even if we think we're working in this energy because it's ours, or we're working in this energy because it's our mom's or our dad's, you know, we could be working in this energy because it's part of our soul contract from an infinite number of lives that we've already carried these things through. And with those pieces, when you bring yourself into a meditative state, you call yourself into your higher self, your body, your soul remembers how to do this work. And so as soon as you start walking down this path, because sure, don't we all want to see why we're not able to be received in the... And Jen and I ask questions all the time. If we had more time, we would ask more questions.
Yeah.
We're always digging into something. And so, yeah, it's whatever feels important at the time, wherever the juice is. So you call yourself into your higher self. You say, you know, is this experience that I'm dealing with, is it mine? And you'll know, okay, well, is it from a past life? Like, show me. And we've worked a little bit with the Four Winds Society.
Yeah, that's been really so much free stuff.
They have free shamanic journeys to look at past lives. I mean,
it's all the time. I would recommend like going and following them because they're always posting some kind of free workshop. Yeah,
but and the truth is that it doesn't matter whether you do it with Alberto or shamanic grandpa. It doesn't matter whether you do it with a healer. It doesn't matter.
You take yourself in.
It doesn't matter at all, because as soon as you hold this intention in your heart, like, oh, I want to find out more about whatever it is, the next thing that you're going to be shown is how to do that. You know, everything is always coming in. It's almost in real time. You know?
And if you ask for it, then keep your eye out for the signs, because they might not. Sometimes it's obvious. Yeah. And sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes, you know, like, why do I keep falling for these people or having relationships or friendships like this? Yeah. And there'll be just like a small little twig, like, you know, and if you just ask the question, but you don't have the intent to kind of follow through and find the answer, you might miss it.
Yeah, don't call in the storm on the shore.
Don't call in the storm if you don't want to get soaked.
You're not ready to go through it. And so the last thing that I sort of want to talk about, what are we at, 33? So the last thing that I want to talk about along these lines, I think there's this perception about channeling. You know, that some people have the gift, some people do not have the gift. What is channeling? You know, channeling, I think, is really just bringing your intentional awareness to listening to something, you know? And like, some people channel Pleiadians or Syrians or Arcturians. Some people channel gods and goddesses. Some people channel specific groups of people or specific people. Mediumship, I'm not sure if that's a sort of similar thing. We're channeling from the astral, but really I'm channeling from my guides, right? And sometimes I'm channeling from the guides of people that I work with. And so I just wanted to speak into it for a minute, because everyone is a channel. Everyone is a channel. And you don't want to start just sending your radio signal up to whatever's around. That's not a great idea. You always want to really protect the integrity of your channel by placing it at unconditional love and above. if you're not channeling your guides and your higher self, if you're channeling other things, you set that protection. If you are channeling your higher self or your guides, always calling in the highest guides that are available to you, because it does change as you work with different energies. But just to give two very quick examples, like last night we were laying in bed and you were speaking into this, like, you know, we have so much happening astrologically. Uranus has moved into Gemini. For me, it feels like now I am a fire in a you know, a tinder pile. That's how I feel as a Gemini. But you as a Capricorn, I think just these big expansive states, and we were feeling into it, and I said, okay, like, beautiful guides, I call them my highest and brightest guides. Is there something that I can share with Jen that is aligned with her highest good? And like, okay, yes, what is it? Is it about this Sirius 7-7 portal? Like, no. Is it about Uranus? No. Is it about Neptune going retrograde? No.
Yeah, there's so much that's happening.
Yeah, what is it about? Okay, Mercury. Mercury? Okay, I will look at Mercury. Should I look at our natal chart? Yes. Okay. And this is how channeling is for me.
Yeah.
You know, is there anything else that I need to look at? Like, is it the Syrian sun? Like, oh, it's just the sun. Yeah, it's just the sun. Okay, I'll look at her chart.
Yeah, and I was so grateful because I was doing the same kind of thing, but asking very different questions. I'm learning a bit, you know, I'm learning when it comes to astrology, but like, it's not so forward in my experience that I'm asking about all of these different aspects when I'm asking questions about like what is happening.
Yeah, but also it's important for you to ask your own questions as well.
Yeah.
And then when we did look at your chart and the transits, this full moon in Capricorn, the full moon is conjunct your Mercury. And then we started...
Yeah, and I was all kinds of messed up. Like, I kept saying cranberry jam, and you're like, it's crabapple jelly that was Celine gave you. And I was like, 10 minutes later, cranberry jam. Like, I was like, I was so far gone. And like, to the point where it felt like uneasy in my body, you know?
Yeah, but so interesting. So
Mercury.
we started looking, so we started looking at these aspects. And so that's just one way, and it's different every time. It's always, sometimes I channel Jen's guides. I've done that many times before, where, you know, if there's something that needs to come through that
I've called in yours for you. I forget what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then we have our collective for the path that we walk together.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give that example, and then I wanted to give this other example. You know, that sometimes when I'm working with somebody and I've called in all of the medicine, I've called in all the support, and we're deep in process in our work together, you know, there's been times where I needed to tell them something, but I myself didn't know how to tell them, and I've channeled the energy of that, and it's come out in different forms of light language, where I feel like, you know, my light language I recognize as my own, and sometimes when we're in different energies I recognize it as that energy, and sometimes it's a completely new language that I've never spoken before, and I just spend a couple of minutes explaining whatever it is I'm explaining, you know, like intentionally, like as if I'm speaking in English, like intentionally explaining. And sometimes I have, you know, some awareness about what I'm talking about, kind of, but I don't speak the language. And so I think it creates this bridge, and this is why I think it's so important that as we start to move into this space, especially Uranus and Gemini, where we're starting to look at the way that we communicate specifically, you know, like, because I could not have given her that message without accessing this channeled light language explanation, you know?
Yeah, and even like, if she didn't understand it in the way that she would understand in English, like her body is understanding, her soul is understanding, you know? So
yeah, and it just becomes super important because, you know, I know people have different opinions about AI, and our opinion about AI is nuanced, obviously, but, you know, I think having that discernment, you know, because the discernment starts with, you're always going to be alone, see? And the discernment starts there. Is this voice mine? You know, before you can work in ancestral trauma, you know, like, you have to be able to start, like, there. Is this, you know, is this voice even mine? Like, this energy, sometimes, because the way that you and I are so connected, like, sometimes I have to be like, okay, I'm feeling jazzy. Is it my jazziness or is it Jen's? You know, like, I'm feeling sad. Is it mine or is it hers? It's not hers. Like, is it collective sadness? Is it mine? Is it, you know, someone who's close to me and I haven't figured out what's happening yet? You know, I'm getting this intuitive information. Anyway, it's a whole long story just to talk about that. Everyone is a channel. Everyone has access to higher dimensional information and awareness. Everybody's capable of keeping themselves safe with just their intention. It requires diligence and practice, because even one small oversight opens the door for something that will also be a teacher, but you'll have to experience. And so just putting this out there, that because right now the veil is thin, you know, the veil is thin right now. We have all of these astrological, we had the 7/7 portal, we had the Syrian sun alignment, you know, our spiritual sun. We've got big goddess energy. We've got Uranus moving out of the anaretic degree, Taurus into Gemini. There's so much space here that is supporting us starting to connect in a more meaningful way. How we think, what we discern as truth, how we communicate. And so it just feels like there's an opportunity for us to start to connect in a different, radical, revolutionary way. And for me, the answer to that is connecting and communicating in this radical unconditional love, you know, and calling in whatever supports those are. Like, you can just call in unconditional love. Come be with me, you know? It's just, everyone has access to it, and everyone's a channel. Everyone has a higher self. Everyone's a soul.
Don't listen to the voice that says, it's for them, not for me. You can do it. Everybody can do it.
Everyone is love.
And everybody starts somewhere, you know? I didn't know a year ago I could pull cards. And I'm pulling cards, and it's like faster and faster all the time.
This is the example. You mean you didn't know that you could drum out wombs?
No, I did not. I just learned that recently. It's...
But it is a freedom. It's a freedom to explore. Like, okay, you know, because you started by asking, like, show me my gifts. Show me who I am. Show me my past lives. Maybe you said, like, show me why I've always felt like I was on the outside. Show me why I've never fit in. You know, like, there's so many doorways. And you did meet a priestess.
I did.
So that was helpful.
It helped a lot. I highly recommend it.
Call in a priestess.
Call it in. Call in a priestess.
But same as on the shore, do not call in a priestess
unless you mean it. Unless you mean it.
You're ready to be drugged through every rebirth that you can think of in order to call you into your most expanded, most authentic state. So hoping that this serves in some way.
I hope so. Thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you so, so much.
Sending love to wherever you are on the path.
So much love.
Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Hopefully see you next week.
Hopefully we're recording next week. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.